All right. Ooh, it says that I'm talking now. Boom. Okay, let's try this. Okay. I'm gonna ask my lovely wife again. Or if anybody's actually watching this right now and laughing, go ahead and comment if you can hear
Oh, it says that I'm talking.
Ooh, yeah, I think it must have worked because I was getting some noise feedback.
it. All right. So, yep, she hears me now. Boom! Peter Broom can hear me too. Hey, I hope you weren't on this for too long because that was really embarrassing that an IT guy couldn't figure out this freaking microphone for the.
It is embarrassing.
Okay, let's go back to the screen so we can see our lovely faces here. All right. Full screen. Hey, we learned a couple things tonight. That's good.
Cool.
Okay, for those of you that were on the call before audio was going, we were talking to each other and having a good old time, and we could not realize that nobody could hear anything. She's, by the way, my wife Alyssa says that your audio on your side sucks. It's bad quality, so maybe you should put on a headphone.
For mine?
Yeah, she says it's really bad. You want to read it? It's right here.
Well, I believe it. Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Does it make a difference if I sit like this? Now I feel like I'm sitting like a jackass. But
Alyssa, you're gonna have to reply to that if you're on the video right now. Go ahead and.
okay, I can put the headset on. I just don't want to.
I didn't want to either, but you know, let's watch this. Hey. Okay, now I can watch the comments on my phone, which is good. So if you guys say anything like Peter does, Peter, I love you. We can go.
I can't remember if it was Peter or not. I think it was one of the Brooms. There are only 1.5 witnesses to my 500-pound deadlift pull because it was early in the morning.
Ooh.
And I don't think Jamie at the front desk was actually paying attention. And whichever Broom it was, he had like white and black zebra pants on.
She says you're echoing. Yeah, so you're putting the headset on. Okay, give us 2 minutes. He's going to put this lovely headset on. Oh, yeah. Hey, Peter, if you're still on the call, we both want to look like you. We want to be pilots. So,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Alyssa, text me if you can hear him. And if he sounds really bad still, that might just be his voice. Let's be real.
It could be, yeah. Although in regular conversation, I don't think my voice echoes, so I don't know why it would.
It doesn't?
If it's just my voice.
That's not a normal thing.
Dude, we've known each other for 30 years. You never told me.
Okay, so those of you that could not hear us for the first 10 minutes of our live feed, one, I apologize. No, I don't. Two, I'm going to introduce you to the man, the myth, the 500-pound deadlifter at some point in time.
Once.
Mr. Sam O'Connell. Sam will be joining me tonight. We're going to be discussing communication and effort in business. We'll probably talk about it in your personal world too, just to correlate it to those that don't do a lot of business work, but everybody that has a job probably does something with this, I would think. And we'll have a little fun on the side. I'll be getting caffeinated. Sam is probably going to have a downer. I'll have the upper. So, Sam, welcome to the call. Thank you for joining me. I know you have a busy schedule and you're extremely important.
Neither of those things is true. I just go to bed really early. So, yeah.
That's what happens when you get old. So,
I mean, I do get up at 4 a.m. though, so. Yeah.
That's early for me, and I'm in the military. That's crazy. All right.
Well, class is at 5, so you gotta get there.
So I want to preface with the fact that Sam and I did not even talk to each other about this call prior to, because I wanted this to be truly organic and have a little bit of fun with it. We'll talk about some stories that we both had in our lives. We'll correlate it with one another. We may actually get into some heated discussions with one another. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. The reason why I wanted to talk about communication and effort in business is because I had been talking to a lot of people lately, and I kept seeing a reoccurring theme come up, and it was just mind-boggling to me how so many high-profile business individuals. Oh, your shirt's awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Dragon Ball Z, yes. It's mind-boggling to me how so many people can have high-end businesses and not do the simple things that allow them to be successful. So, I wanted to go through that. As always with a lot of my videos, I'm going to start with the story. And I'm going to start with that and let Sam kind of give his input and go from there. The story. So, talking to one of my coworkers, and they were talking about experience that they recently had at a car dealership. Okay, I'm not going to mention car dealerships because I don't want to, ruin anybody's lives here. So he went in. It was a car dealership that he worked with in the past, and they gave him a call and they said, "Hey, we got you down for a free detail and car wash." And I'm like, whenever you hear that, first of all, you're going, "Whoa, hold on a second. There's gonna be some sort of catch here, right?" Like, how many times have you heard that and you were like, "What's the catch?" Ever, Sam?
Well, I mean, with anything free, yeah.
Because it's always too good to be true, right? So, and they're like, "No, it's completely free." Great, awesome. Yeah, I'd love to get my truck cleaned out and detailed on the inside. It's pretty dirty, so I'm going to come on down. Goes on down, right? And he goes into the car dealership, sits down, lets his car get detailed and clean, comes back out, and they're like, "You're good to go, sir. Awesome, I appreciate it." Goes to the inside to inspect it, as I would. And he looks at the floorboard on his driver's side of his truck and didn't shake it. You know how you can shake your floor mats in your truck? Like you have to pound them together? Didn't even do that. He just flipped it over and a whole bunch of dirt comes out. So when somebody says they're going to vacuum and detail the inside of your car, do you expect them to have that much dirt on your floorboard when they're done with it? I mean, I don't.
Absolutely not.
No. Yeah. So he tells the guy that, right? And the guy goes, "No, that's not possible. I don't believe you." So first of all, that was the first mistake. The guy called him a liar right off the bat, right? And so he's like, "Here, let me show you." And he takes him to the truck. And he goes to the passenger side. And the guy that made him come to the dealership, he said, "Hey, take that floor mat out of the passenger side and do me a favor and flip it over." Flips it over. Ton of dirt comes out, right? You're like, "Where are you going with this, Brian?" There's a point, I promise. So, getting a little scuffle. They talk about it. Obviously, they have opposing viewpoints on who's right, who's not. So he goes home. He waits a little bit. He's like, "You know what? I need to make a phone call to the dealership because the owner needs to know that this is the kind of service that I was given." So he gives the dealership a call, talks to the owner, and she's like, "Yeah, how may I help you?" Well, he told her the scenario. And did I tell you this story yet, Sam? If I did.
Yes, you did.
So, don't answer this. So what do you think she said, right? So what do you think she said? It'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's not the experience that we want you to have when you come to our dealership because obviously we take a lot of pride in what we do, right?" Like that's what I would expect to come out of her mouth. Her reply is, "Sir, the detail was free. What do you expect it to do? What do you expect it to look like?" And I was laughing profusely in the office when he told me this story, and I was like, "Okay, this is ridiculous." And this is a business owner, guys. This is a business owner that runs a car dealership that makes probably way more money than we do. And that comes out of her mouth. So there's a couple of things wrong with that. And I'm going to give my input here in a second, but I want to give Sam a little bit time to take the floor here and kind of tell me what his thoughts are.
So Brian did tell me this story yesterday, and first off, I, in general, absolutely agree with him. Like, just for the sake of the reputation of your company, like it doesn't matter what the cost is. If you offer a thing for a penny or $1 million, whatever it is, you should offer it with your best foot forward always. Now, my first thought actually ran to, that being important, the reputation, how you treat the little things, how you treat the customer in general. We read and watch Gary Vaynerchuk videos about how important your reputation is, how fast word travels, and things like that. But I know this is not the first time you've heard a story like this, not identical.
I've heard all that.
Exactly. So I have to wonder if, maybe these are just things that sound good in book. There's obviously a lot of people that run a lot of crappy that make a lot more than I do. So I don't disagree that this situation or situations like it is handled incorrectly in this way. It's not how I would want to run a business if I did. But at the same time, I have to question how important that sentiment is in general if all these people making a lot more money than we do seem to be behaving in this manner.
And that's a very valid point. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I didn't know if you'd bring it up, because I know you'd mentioned that yesterday when we talked, and I actually was talking to another coworker today about a similar thing, and he brought up a valid point, and his point was, he's like, well, you have to look at three tiers when it comes to business, right? And he's like, there's three different tiers, but the whole story, what he came down to was, he's like, the target market, when they try to bring somebody into a car dealership for a free car wash, they're probably not like you and the other individual that went in, where you nitpick and you have very high expectations about how a service should be completed, right? The average Joe and their target market is probably, the average Joe that just wants to come in and get a free car wash, right? And they're not going to look at it and nitpick every single thing that comes into it. So for them, if they have, one out of 15 people that happens to have that negative reaction, does it really hurt them enough to warrant putting the effort into making it right, right? So, and because you walk into it, it's a Ford dealership, right? I'm just using Ford as an example. No offense to anybody that has a Ford. Versus a Mercedes or a top end. So if you went to a Mercedes dealership and they said, hey, we're going to detail your car, I bet you would have extremely different expectations than if you went into a Ford dealership and said, hey, we're going to give you a free car wash, right?
Oh, absolutely. But so just going back to the specific story, how it was told was the guy brings the dirty format or whatever, right? And the manager, whoever it was immediately defensive. No way. So his reaction would lead me to believe that that is something that should have been done or should have been completed. And I mean, the first off, like, you really shouldn't challenge the customer on such a small thing that, maybe they did it, but they just didn't do a good job or whatever. Be like, hey, not a problem. How long does it take to have somebody like re-vacuum the bottom of the seats?
20 seconds? Like, how long could it possibly take?
Yeah, exactly. So the gentleman that you spoke, his just as valid.
And I think that's another good point right there to bring up, which is why I wanted to have this conversation tonight to begin with, because I think a lot of people need to see the fact that, and I want to talk about effort. So, and so we'll go back to that in a second. But the thing that was mind-boggling to me was you could have easily taken someone that, had a bad experience and is going to tell everybody they talk to, like, hey, if anybody asks me what car dealership to buy a car from, guess which one he's not going to tell them to buy a car from?
No, 100%.
And so the one thing that I get back to is, and this is something that one of my old bosses used to say was, and I love it. So if he's watching this later or now, you'll know who you are. But he said, Brian, no one wakes up in the morning wanting to go to work to do a shitty ass job. No one wakes up going, hey, I'm going to be a complete piece of shit at work today. Now,
That's not true.
There are
That's
exceptions.
not true.
Hold on a second. There are exceptions. Now, and we'll talk about that. But the question becomes, why does somebody want to do that? Because if they were in a job that they truly loved, that they had a passion for, they probably wouldn't wake up going, hey, I want to be a piece of shit at work today. And if they do,
well, of course they wouldn't if they were in a job that they loved and passionate about. How many people do you know that fit that description?
Exactly. Hey, close the window before you come upstairs. Which window? Oh, apparently the window behind me is open.
Look at the shadows and stuff. Yeah, it looks like there's a ghost like standing right outside the window.
I got you, babe. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa.
But so I put a quote on the actual the post about this video from Martin Luther King. Did you see that?
No.
And it's the street sweeper quote. So it says, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper that anybody's scene, sweep streets like, Beethoven composed music, sweep streets like blah 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 blah, right? So because in my life and my upbringing, if I did anything less than 100%, that internally was a struggle with me. I'm like, why did I just give a half-ass job on that? Like that's
I just heard a great one. I want to say it was from Tyson. I could be misquoting here. Regardless, the quote was, to be, I'm paraphrasing,
okay.
to be great at something, you have to do things that you hate like you love them. I thought that was fantastic.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so if it was Tyson that said that running, most people hate running. I hate running, but like, yeah,
Despite it.
it's it's a necessary evil though.
So are you telling me I should probably run instead of working out and lifting all the time?
I mean, maybe run a little bit more.
Oh, well, okay. That's actually
I mean, you passed your PT, like it's all good. Like,
yeah, I did pass the PT. I just maybe I'll run more. Okay, cool. I like that. Yeah. So, but it's kind of funny that you bring that up too, because if if we do things really well that we don't enjoy, and we're doing that well, that kind of rewires our brain, right? Because then we're always in that mode that, hey, I have to do things extremely well. So then when it comes to something you actually love and you're already doing the things you absolutely hate really well, imagine what it's going to look like when you do something that you love really well.
absolutely, but I think even that has a shelf life to an extent. I think there has to be sort of a means to an end. I think there has to be like an end state, a goal in mind, so you understand what you're suffering for. I think a lot of people are in a position where they're doing what they can, and that's to bring home a check if you don't take they've got kids, or maybe they just like to not be a lot of it. But even still, that discipline, constantly, getting up and going to work and not doing a shitty job, and doing something that maybe you don't hate it, but you're tired of it. After a while, you're just going to crack if there's no goal, if there's no end. Like, why am I doing this? Because it is just for a check at the end of the day. There's limited time frame, which is different for a lot of people. So I think a lot of people that maybe don't have like if they don't have kids, or if they don't have like something that like they have to do this for, and they're just doing it for themselves, or then it opens them up to, what am I doing here? What am I doing here?
They have to have purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's huge. And it's funny because a lot of people, if they don't have purpose, what do? They start to get into a mundane, like, oh, I'm just gonna go through the motions every day and get up and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and then how many people are they impressing day in and day out when they're doing that?
And something that I'm coming to learn in the last couple of years is that not everyone has passion or purpose. Maybe they look for it, maybe they don't. But I would say probably the majority of people don't have a thing for them. It's and look around. Like, go back to my previous question: how many people do you know? Do their passion, do what they love, whatever. I don't. I think I can probably name one person for sure, maybe that their dream job.
It's very far and few in between.
Yeah.
And which is really scary, to be honest, because I think a lot of that, and I may be overstepping my boundaries here, but when you look at all the hatred out there right now, and I mean, people are using politics and the whole movement with BLM and everything, they're using that as a medium, right, from all this anger that's pent up. And yeah, there's a lot of things sparking that. So I don't want to go on a tangent on that because we could talk about that for 85 hours, but there's one key thing behind all of that, and that there's a lot of hatred and disregard and discontent in their hearts. And if somebody was, I'll say this: if somebody's happy with what they're doing and their purpose, they tend to be a lot more cordial with other people, generally speaking. And that may be something that you can argue, and I would love to hear the other side of that. But in my experience, individuals that I notice that have seeing success in their own purpose tend to be a little bit more friendly to everybody else that they meet when they're, engaging with other people and having human interactions.
Yeah, that's a hard one because
You can't really quantify that.
well, it's hard to articulate what I mean. I think there are people that are happy with their lives, doing what they enjoy, and a lot of people are the hero to their own story, right? Like, so what I mean by that is Thanos thought he was right. He thought he was, and he justified that to himself perfectly. He was the hero in that story, and I'm not trying to make
I still halfway think that he was the hero. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, I can see where he's coming from with that. Is it right? Probably not, but
that conversation we have to have a psychologist on the show too to help steer that conversation. Yeah, right. But so what I mean by this is, so you got somebody doing they enjoy, smart person, and I think for a lot of people, the vitriol and the shouting, you're wanting. My team's your stance on the issue. And I think we want to reach out and educate the other side. Hey, the truth, my side is, and they do. There's a lot of tact, that a lot of empathy, a lot of proper articulation to try and really get a point across. And now you also have another side that doesn't want to hear it as well. So while the person successful, doing well, comes out with good intentions, I think that tends to add fuel to fire that can't really be put out.
yeah, you're cutting in and out, by the way.
I'm cutting out.
You're cutting, yeah, it's cutting in and out. So I don't know if it's just not reading or picking up your mouth. Like maybe you need here talk.
I think kids could watch this. You should do it.
Alyssa says, yeah, I just got another text that says you're saying some great stuff, but your audio is subpar. Come on. Hey, at least it's you now and not me.
I don't know what to do differently.
Yeah, so anyway, look at that for a second while I tell a story. So we're going to go back around, and I think that's a very valid point, too. The one thing, and the reason I wanted to have this, another reason I wanted to have this conversation is because I wanted people to see the impact of what happens if you don't give your 100%, right? And I think this is going to be better shown with an example. And I've told this story to a lot of people that I mentored and worked with. Texas Roadhouse. Yeah, you remember those days, right? So I worked at Texas Roadhouse for quite some time. Do you remember? Did you ever remember what happened with the story when I got hired on at High Pro?
No.
Okay, so they came in on a Friday night, and this is a good story of, and I always come back to this because it's a perfect example of what happens if you do things right. So the phrase, "Do what you would do as if everybody's watching, but do it when no one's watching." So like, what do you do when no one's watching, right? And because you never know who it's going to be. So earlier we talked about the fact that if you don't have purpose in what you're doing, you're probably going to, sludge through your day, and you're not going to, and you may not be bad at your job, right? Like you may be perfectly normal and doing the right thing, but you're not going to wow anybody if your attitude isn't like up here, which is hard to maintain, right? If you don't like what you're doing. So Texas Roadhouse, Friday night comes around. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been at Texas Roadhouse on a Friday night. How busy is it?
Hella busy.
It's a shit show. That's what it is. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts.
I miss that blooming onion so much.
It's actually a cactus blossom at Texas Roadhouse, so get your phrase right. Outback is a blooming onion.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, so anyway, I digress. So, Friday night, Texas Roadhouse, and the bar's full. You got 2 whole rounds of people, right? and we're getting our butts kicked. It's me and one other person. I actually think it was Kelsey. So Kelsey, if you're watching this, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. But we were bartending, doing crazy. Three or four people come up to the bar. They sit down, like, "Hey, can we eat up here?" "Yes, I would love you to eat up here. My name's Brian. This is Kelsey. We're gonna be taking care of you." Blah 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 blah. Right? Doing our thing. We're making drinks for the restaurant. We have some fun conversations. We kind of jaw jack around back and forth and say some things that are rated PG-13. They have a great time. They get towards the end of their meal. The one female that's with them, who, by the way, was about 1.5 to twice my age, gets a napkin, and she says, "Hey, I want your phone number." I'm like, so I gave her a fake phone number, right? I was like, 1-800, call me for a good time. And so that transpires. They say thank you. They leave for the night. Nothing. I never thought anything of it, right? Like just another night at Texas Roadhouse having fun. Next Friday, a week from that exact day, the same 4 people come back in. Exact same 4 people. They sit in the exact same spot. "Hey, do you remember us?" "Of course I remember you guys." Listed them off by name, right? It's like I'm 2 of them. I'm not gonna, just 2 out of the 4.
Yeah.
Because I didn't remember the other 2. And so they were like, "Holy crap, that's crazy. You remember 2 of our names." I was like, "I don't remember your guys' names though, but yeah, I tried." And so did that, and Alyssa just texted me. She says, "Damn cougars." That was before I knew you, babe. So, but the next night, that next Friday, they came back in. Same thing. We were slammed, blah, blah, blah. I give them the service. It's 2 of us again. At the very end of that conversation, they go, "We actually do want your phone number." I'm like, "All 4 of you want my phone number?" Okay, so I was okay with one person saying that. 4 people, that's kind of weird, guys. They're like, "No."
Out there.
Yeah, I haven't. That's a different story for a different time. Anyway, they said, "No, we want to offer you a job." And I kind of like choked in my mouth for a second. I was like, "What?" Yeah. "You ever worked in manufacturing?" "Nope." "Do you know anything? So you know of John Deere, right?" I was like, "Yeah, both my parents work at John Deere. So we're a subcontractor for John Deere." I said, "Great. Why would you want me to be working in manufacturing?" And they're like, "Because we saw the skill sets, we saw the people skills, we know that you bust your butt. It looks like you guys run this place. We want you. We will train you to do what we need to do." I was like, "Cool, let's do it." We negotiated, and I was there for 2.5 years. It's actually one of the best jobs that I ever actually had. I learned a lot of stuff from there, and I even tried to go back, and it just we tried to go back, and I was going to be living in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. Oh my gosh. No, Oklahoma sucks. And I apologize for anybody that lives there. No. So, moral of the story, right? Why? Why tell this story? Because the whole point of this video is effort and communication. We'll get to communication next here. But effort in business, right? So even when nobody's watching, somebody's watching. And that night, and just giving 110%, because even though we were getting our asses kicked and I didn't want to be there, I just wanted to freaking, I was chugging energy drinks every hour and a half. It was bad. And I just wanted to go home and probably play WoW. Like, I probably wanted to play World of Warcraft and, yeah, be a nerd. And so, but I did my thing. And it got me into a job that I learned a ton of stuff from, and I doubled my income within 2 months. Doubled it. And I was like, holy crap. And that was my epiphany, right? That was why I even made this video today, probably, is because that moment in time for me was a realization that somebody is always watching, and if I don't have my best foot forward, I could miss something that could greatly impact my life. So that's my spew on that. And what are your counter spews to that? And tell me about a time in your life where you may have had something good or bad, or maybe that was with someone else.
Well, I guess the closest I have is just for the company that I work for now. When I started, I was an operator, and we work 3 days on, 4 days off, optional OT on Saturday or whatever, and then switch months out of the year. But anyway, I generally work 6 or 7 days a week because whenever the overtime sheet was posted, I would just fill my name in. And I did that until they gave me a better job. Yep. So I was working overnights, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., which was actually awesome. When nobody's there to bother you, you can do your work.
When you were doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, with every time than I do now. That was nice. I mean, I working 6 or 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. That's not awesome. And then with it being overnights as well. So, but yeah, they saw the effort and they gave me a job and got promoted. Yeah.
So I'm going to put myself on the spot here with you because I haven't thought of a scenario with this.
Okay.
Give me a time when you had a bad customer service experience and that ended up drastically changing your thoughts on that business and or company and how that impacted your moving forward with them.
When I lived in Texas, the Acura broke an axle when I was turning out of a parking
Story
lot.
of your freaking life, dude. You've had so many car troubles, it's not even funny.
I'm a lucky guy. What can I say? So I had a warranty on the car. So I had the car brought to the closest dealership. Those were walk away. Fantastic. And the warranty company sent someone out to inspect it to see if they would cover it. And the guy at the shop was, I mean, yeah, just said it just broke. Like, you can't, there's nothing crazy. And yeah, I was just turning out of a parking lot. So anyway, the company sends a guy out, a representative out, and like, he said, no, we're not going to cover it. And I was kind of baffled. And they were like, well, it rusted through for whatever reason. It would be but I mean, it's surface rust. Like, the axle itself, like, it was split in half. Like, there was no rust through the axle. It was shiny and it was polished steel. That was a clean break. And so, I mean, it's a car from Minnesota. So it's going to have surface rust on it, of course. Every single car does. And so I called up the company after speaking to the manager of the budget, and he was like, yeah, he's obviously, a lot of cars come here, and this is not the first time. This is like a rep for probably, multiple companies. But guy like shuts up, hard to work with, and we don't have a good time with him. And I disagree with the assessment situation.
Yeah.
So I called up the company and I was like, hey, this is the situation. I told them that the shop told me, and I was like, hey, you could just get a different rep out there. That way, we've got third opinion, and then democracy wins 2-1, right? They're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And I was like, well, I mean, this is $1,200, a lot of money. I've seen from the photos that it's clearly surface rust. If you guys could do that. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking at the photos right now. It's like, there's rust. I'm like, there is rust. Service.
Wow.
So it's rusted through, but it's not. And I was like, it would mean a lot if you guys could, send out another rep. They're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So that was it was Zurich Insurance. I think they're based out of Kansas City, maybe. I don't know. First company I've ever dealt with, which it form. Yeah. So
that would frustrate me a lot.
Yeah, if you look them up on Google, they're like 2.3 stars or something like that. It's an awful company. So whenever see if I happen to catch it, they sponsor like golf tournaments and shit. You see like the fancy blues. That's that bad shit company.
Wow. See if you can do. Are you on push to talk or is it just random? Like it's like me with you just talking.
It's just talking.
Okay. Do you see if the Discord has a push to talk that you can change it to? Because that might fix it.
You're still having issues?
Yeah, you're having issues. You have a very lovely voice, and even Alyssa is saying that she loves to hear you, but it's cutting out half the time. So she gets excited, and then it goes away, and she loses that excitement, and then it comes back, and then it goes away again. And I'll think of my story. I'm actually gonna say this on video.
I'm gonna grab a different headset.
Okay, that's fine. I'm actually gonna talk about this on video. I'm not gonna name the company. I don't need to. It's a fitness company based out of Wichita. Okay, that's all you need to know. So, bad experience that. Oh, geez. Hopefully, I can't hear the feedback from his headset. Okay, good. So, had a really bad experience, and when you have a company take over another company, I mean, there's always going to be change. I mean, and you got to get used to change and things like that. I'm not going to go into details on this. I just want to use it as a high cliff notes. Um, I worked at this place for a month and a half after they purchased out another fitness company I was working with, and the way that my employees and the members were treated was so beyond disgusting that I ended up having to leave 2 months in because I could not handle the lack of moral values that the leadership instilled. And so it goes to show, and to this day, there have been I love people working out, and I would even say this when, I was working at other places. I would say, hey, if this isn't the best fit for you, and this is pretty rare when where I was working last, it wouldn't be the best fit. But I would be honest, like, hey, if this isn't the best fit, what are you looking at for options? And if that company was one of the options, I would point out, say, I recommend not going there. Go in at your own risk, look at it for yourself. But you're not going to get treated like a human being. And so, point of that whole story between ours and his is that no matter who you think is watching or what's going on or how you think one individual can impact you, every single interaction you're having on a day-to-day basis, whether it's with somebody you've never met, whether it's in passing by, whether it's with coworkers, whether it's with your family, friends, you always have to think, how can this impact them? Maybe they're having a bad day, So that's the other half of this is when you're interacting with someone, you have to think that, maybe they're having a bad day or maybe something's going on in their life that you don't know about because you don't know. And the other side of that is with you, if you have a negative experience, which is why I didn't go into detail with this company because I don't want to talk about the details of my experience with them. I just want you to know that it was a really negative one and it impacted me talking about them moving forward. But what you say and do can create ripple effects in a lot of people's lives. And that goes both ways, which is cool. So, welcome back with the blue headset. We're matching. Look at this. We're both blue.
Yeah, there you go.
We should probably play Eiffel 65 right now and start singing I'm blue, dabba dee, dabba die.
Well, not if we want to get any more viewers.
You don't think we get viewers if we sing that song?
I mean, that's not really what I want to be known for.
Okay, how about Can You Feel the Love Tonight from The Lion King?
I'll do that, yeah.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
Anyway,
I was telling them about my side. So let's talk communication.
yeah.
The point. Let's recap on effort, right? So there are two sides to that. One is that if you don't give 110%, somebody's going to notice that, and if you are, that also may be noticed, and it can create a positive ripple or a negative ripple depending on how you're doing it. And in some cases, to Sam's point, it may not impact you at all. And because there is a give and take with that. And so in business, what the sad thing is in business, most people are in business to do what?
Make money.
Make money. Now, in my experience and in my sales professional career, me giving a great experience to every single person I was in front of greatly benefited me financially. However, for some large companies like that, it's really hard to manage all the people within that company, right? Two, there's got to be give and take. So if the payoff isn't worth the effort putting in to make this right for someone, then they're probably not going to focus on it, right? So that's kind of the recap on the effort side. Anything else to add to that?
No.
Okay, sweet. I'm getting a lot of messages from my wife. Let's see if they're important. They're all important, by the way.
Yeah, that was...
Ooh, she says much better audio, Sam. She's excited again. All
Man,
right.
that's weird.
So now you know which headset to use. So
I guess.
now we're going to communication. This is extremely important in a lot of aspects of life. And obviously business, it is also extremely important, especially for those of us that are OCD about making sure that people know what's going on and how it's going on. So Sam, put you on the spot. You ready? Tell me about your view on communication in a professional setting and also about a great experience that you had with something in communication, whether it was with a coworker or with a business you were working with, and a bad situation that you had potentially. or you can just go off the cusp and say whatever you want. And we can't have awkward pauses, by the way, because I'm cool with that. So I can start
Yeah.
belting out some. I'm actually on a kick right now with The Greatest Showman. Have you seen that movie?
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there and we'll go into the communication talk.
Oh,
So, communication is obviously a very touchy subject today in 2020 because intent is no longer paramount. I can say something and you know if I don't think of every single scenario in which that statement could be perceived, that could be my job. And
it's definitely.
so it's a great thing to talk about. And it makes you really say what you mean, which is not something that most Americans do. Um, when I think about communication in like the business sense, I dumb it down so that way, essentially, anyone like walking up the street could generally understand what I'm talking about. We, as every company does, you've got CI, continuous improvement, and you have meetings every day or every week about little projects that you're doing. And when we talk about workflow and things like that, I always try to make the environments obvious to an outsider. So if you come up and you visit me, I can you through the shop, and you've got a pretty decent idea of what people are doing and what they're working on. So signage, little like self-help things at like how is that table supposed to look?
Yep.
Is within code or whatever you want to say. So I think it's generally pretty easy to think about communication and just making it simple. Everyone always kind of wants to add their twist to it, and it's definitely something where less is more, especially now when saying too much or saying certain things is going to get you in trouble.
Yep.
So I guess I would say it's simple but not easy to have good
I like
communication.
How you put that way.
I stole that from Jocko Willink. That's not my own.
Oh, I was about to coin phrase that, like, simple, not easy.
Yeah, that's Jocko.
Sam O'Connell. He's a smart dude. He's got a lot of cool stuff. I need to watch and listen to more of his stuff.
He is fantastic.
I like his book, Extreme Ownership.
Yeah, great book. You can generally read like the first 2 chapters, and that's pretty much the book right there.
Yep.
And once again, he's just reiterating simple but not easy concepts, essentially.
Yeah, it was.
So.
It's funny that when obviously we're doing this off the cusp, right? So I have no idea what's going to come into my head. But the first thing when I think of communication, especially in business, that comes back to me is going back to Hypro, so that company that hired me on after Roadhouse, right? Those that I have friends on Facebook that have worked for Hypro and that have worked at John Deere, right? Because John Deere was our customer. And I got hired on as a customer service representative. So those of you that don't know what a CSR is, that's the person that is directly communicating with the end customer to make sure that there's no disconnects and that they know what's going on and how things are going to go, where they're going to go, and so on and so forth. And so I'm no stranger to both the bad side of communication and the good side, because I learned the hard way on a few things, and I think that's the best way to learn, by the way, is just falling flat on your face and getting back up, because it really makes you remember what not to do next time. But a perfect example of that, without divulging too much, we were in catch-up mode we're not talking about the stuff that I put on everything that I eat. But we were catching up in terms of our part loads, right? So we were behind schedule, and you didn't hear that, did you?
No.
Okay, good. Don't ask.
Drop one.
Oh man, it must be the creamer in the coffee.
It is.
Or the peanut butter that I had earlier. Okay, so, but it was funny because we go in there, we're in a hair on fire, we have to catch up, we're losing a lot of people, we got to get this place turned around real fast, right? And we're getting thrown, and it was me and another individual that got hired on to be the face of Hypro, right, for this company, to John Deere. And they're just throwing 85 million things at us, and then we have to communicate with John Deere on why we're past due, what's going on, what machines are down, why we're missing parts on this, why the quality on this was missing. And so one thing that I learned really quickly is that you under promise, over deliver, right? So, and that it's funny, right? So if it's actually going to take 2 hours, you say 3, and you wow them by getting it done 2 hours and 15 minutes in, right? Because it's all about perception, right? So perception's reality to a lot of people. But I have a point with this. So when you communicate effectively and the perception changes, and if the perception changes, the relationship becomes better, so on and so forth. So after you fast forward 9 months after learning what not to do in this, and we were able to, have a very honest and open conversation, to your point. So keep it simple and just be straightforward, right? So I just be like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we can do. And I'm not going to promise you more than I can do. And I'm not going to sit here and divulge the rest of my issues either. So, but it was cool to see the dynamic and how it changed, because at first there were a whole bunch of questions and there wasn't a lot of trust, right? So the trust wasn't there because the communication was spotty at first. So it's just like, and this has been a history in the past, right? So history causes issues with the present. So if you have somebody that you are in a relationship with and you have not communicated effectively in the past with them, it causes issues with trust to a certain extent in certain scenarios. And so to see that change from a lack of trust to, oh, okay, I know when I hear from this individual that they're going to tell me the real deal and what's going on, and this is what we need to expect. It was a very good dynamic to see change. So going into how that impacts the bottom line, what do you think can really be impacted with poor communication?
Well, yeah, obviously missing deadlines is a huge one, but so with the company that I work for, I communicate a lot with project managers.
Oh.
So they're the client-facing aspect, and they have a difficult job in that they're talking to a client, back to us, another client talking back to us. We have multiple systems of software where we work, so there's a lot of articulation that has to go on in different systems, talking to different people in different buildings. And when you forget something, or when you maybe don't understand how things flow or how things work in other buildings or whatever, it can be a huge detriment to the project or whatever. So I guess the bad communication in this instance stems from understanding what you're saying and who you're saying it to. Mm-hmm. Because you might you obviously know what you're asking for from your perspective, but whoever you're talking to either you're asking them to produce something for you, or you're asking them when do you want something or whatever. So if it's the client or if it's internally, you need to understand both perspectives. So the most important aspect of communication in this instance is understanding. So I guess you could call it empathy to an extent, but it's really perception.
And you can't understand without listening and asking the question, right? So being inquisitive for the purpose of the betterment of the situation, and then also listening to what's actually being said. It's funny that we're talking about this on business, and that this is very relevant to a lot of things going on right now.
I guess one core thing that I would say that I don't see very often, most people don't think about what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And I realize that at face value, that's extremely hard to grasp. How could you ever think of or understand something that you don't know, because obviously you don't know it. But when you constantly have that going on in your head, it'll at least allow you to ask the question. Or when you're thinking of a certain aspect of a project, if that question is still in your mind, it will allow you to perk up and say, well, I mean, okay, so I want this project done in this amount of time frame, and I know we can do it, and we have the ability to do it, but, you know, what about material? Do we have all the material that we need to produce, you know, these widgets? So, like, that's, you know, another aspect of understanding that, you know, a lot of people do not think about.
I like that too, because if it keeps you open-minded to other thoughts that may come by, like, oh, I've never thought of this before. And that's the other reason, and that's what I like about having this call with somebody else in there, right? Is every live video that I do is coming from my perspective and my background, right? And if it's something that's I haven't experienced or don't know to think about, and there's a whole bunch of other people that have had different experiences than I have, it's really hard to effectively reach that audience without being able to be open enough to realize that there may be other aspects that I have to think about. So I think that's awesome.
And one thing I do to try to help and facilitate that is when something has been asked of me, I'll repeat it back, like, okay, so after this, you know, my tasks are X, Y, and Z. Once they're finished, I articulate with a little bit more detail how it's been accomplished, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, Brian, you told me to, you know, go to the gym, put 2 plates on, and do a deadlift. And so I'm going to say, okay, I went in, I grabbed a yellow bar, and I put 2 10-pound plates on each side. And so by giving those details, it's like, okay, I realized I didn't give you the proper amount. You're supposed to get the blue bar. You're supposed to get, you know, so yep. Like I always try to do that to try and weed out anything that, like, maybe they forgot to tell me or maybe that I perceived incorrectly.
No, that's extremely valid, because what you may think is, oh yeah, I gave great instructions, I did this, and then they grab the wrong bar and the wrong plates, right? So I like that too, because that's something that a lot of people, I think, take for granted. Is they'll be like, oh, do this task and do this, and then they'll just assume certain things are known when maybe they're not known, or maybe they're known but in a different, you know, perspective, so they don't interpret that the same way. And I'm trying to think of a scenario for me that was like that as well. But I know that the one thing that, to your point on that, is people give me a hard time because I over communicate things, right? Because I want it to be extremely clear as to where I stand, what I'll be doing. Other day I was going over to a friend's house, and I don't want to be a burden on their, you know, schedule, right? So I asked, you know, what roughly what time of day would work, and they're like, oh, I'm pretty open whenever on Saturday. It's not a big deal either way, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, you still have family. You have kids. You have things going on. I'm not just going to randomly show up at your house and go, hey, I'm here. You told me whenever, right? Like, yeah, you told me whenever, but so when I left my house to go run some errands, like, hey, I'm leaving the house. It's probably going to be like an hour and a half or two. And then once I got, you know, like 15 minutes out, I was like, hey, I'll be there in 15 minutes, just a heads up, right? And he gave me a hard time. He's like, dude, Brian, I don't need the play-by-play. You can just show up whenever. And I'm like, no, because, like, you could have said, you know, hey, come over whenever. And what if you're taking a shower when I come over whenever? And it's like, okay, well, they're in the, I mean, Sam, if I came over here, I mean, that's a little different. We're a little bit closer.
That's a little different. We're a little closer.
But for most individuals, it's like, whoa, dude, I was in the shower. Why didn't you tell me you were coming over? Well, because you just said to come over whenever, you know? So.
Yeah, and I mean, that's super subjective. Like, one thing I always find funny is, you know, whenever you go over to somebody's house, like, you know, oh, I'm sorry, it's a mess. Like, for me, I'm like, we've known each other for literally 20 years. Like, you know, I don't care. Yeah. Like, and my place isn't, you know, that tidy. Not to, like, it's whatever, you know. Like, there's, yeah, like there's always crap on that part of the couch. Beautiful. And, like, Becca's got her, like, study materials and laptop and shit over here. Like, we live here and you live in your house. Like, nobody wants to walk into an HGTV place.
What is this? Hold on a second. See this?
Is that marshmallows?
What the hell are these marshmallows? That's
disgusting.
I would like to say this is not my office, but I have eaten a few.
Listen, do you just eat straight marshmallows?
I have eaten a few of those, just FYI. And we got books all over the back. Like, we haven't organized this room at all. But anyway, beside the point.
I got to share this just because it's awesome. Okay. This is Becca's birthday card that I got her.
For your
Like,
birthday this year. And there's a real fur in there. Can I touch it?
Yeah, dude, it's like it's yeah. So you don't It's other than that, it's just a birthday card. But if okay, so the reason I grabbed this one is because it looks like one of Kate Beckinsale's cats.
Ooh.
Okay, why would I know that? Follow her on Instagram. She is always messing with her cats, and it's hilarious.
Are we talking about cats still? Because you said Kate Beckinsale, and I swapped gears.
Seriously, look at her Instagram page. It's hilarious.
She says not to judge her, by the way. No, battery's dying. Hold on. I mean, we're getting closer to wrapping up, guys, but I don't want my battery to die.
We're just getting started. What are you talking about, man? Come on.
If you want me to have a few drinks, we can just get started, and then we can just have people watch as we go.
Let's get after it.
Hold on a second.
I'm starting to feel good now. I'm catching my second wind.
Speaking of messes, I think that's not too bad.
No, you got 2 kids, man.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Kids we clean the house 3 times a week, and it never stops.
Now, I would judge the marshmallows less if there were like graham crackers and Hershey bars next to it. Then
so, see, here's the issue: is I think we got them for s'mores, and I eat the graham crackers because I love graham crackers.
Oh, they're fantastic.
We slowly ate through the Hershey's, and then the bag of marshmallows is just sitting in our cabinet, and we're like, YOLO, let's just eat some marshmallows. Ugh. All right, I got you plugged in. So, back to the point. Communication. Okay, got it. Hold on a sec. I don't want to... Ooh, speaking of communication, I want to communicate the fact that I'm wearing my red socks with dogs on them right now.
Okay.
And
dude, you're flexible. Look at you.
I like that.
It's impressive.
You didn't expect that on the call tonight, did you?
I kind of did. I was hoping for it anyway.
Expect the unexpected on that. You know, I actually kind of like doing this, and now my wife is mid-text right now after doing that.
It's fantastic.
It's the only thing in our house that has sugar in it. So yeah, we don't have anything with sugar in the house. It's like, except for honey. No sugar.
I'm trying to think. We don't have... We buy pretty lean, honestly. Yeah. We don't have a whole lot of extra.
Because we'll eat it if we have it. So we
yes.
don't
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother call. We can go into nutrition and start talking about life and how you get jacked and tan. Well, at least the jacked part. I don't know about the tan.
Yeah.
But, so, I want to go into wrapping this back up and throw out some random, Pandora's box type comments here, Sam, if you want to throw some things in here. But
well, if we're on the business, I'm trying to, keep it focused a little bit here, dude. We could tangent for an hour or two. I'm fine with that, but I want to get through your business stuff first.
Like, are you watching the comments on the video? We probably don't have any.
No, so I've got you like full screen, like that screenshot that I sent you.
Yeah, I did.
Like how my laptop looks. So it's mostly your face that I'm seeing.
Oh, that's beautiful. But I wonder if people like tangents or if they just want to hear the content.
But anyway. It's your show. Like I said, I think I'll flip the script on you, and we'll do a YouTube one where it's just you bouncing your titties the entire time.
What?
What? Yeah, what?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. No, but I mean, you listen to podcasts, don't you?
Yeah.
Who do you listen to?
So I listen to Jocko a lot, actually. That's funny that you mentioned that, because that's what I listen to. Because I just got into podcasts because I was like, oh no, I like reading books instead. So my whole medium was reading books. And then I started listening to Jocko stuff. And I was like, yes, this is kind of... Because I do it, like on the way to work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
He's been my guy.
So, yeah, no, he's great. And he's one of the long format guys. I mean... Someday, if I ever own a home, like I'll totally have a little studio in there and just have people over that I find interesting. I mean, I'm super lucky that I've actually ran into a couple of professors from the University of Minnesota down at the Cigar Lounge. Some down from St. Cloud as well.
Wow.
But just fantastic conversation. I ran into this one doctor who studies diabetes extensively and is looking obviously into a cure for that, and fantastic conversation there. I think the St. Cloud professor's philosophy, possibly, but there's so many interesting people out there to talk to. So,
So you were going to go back to communication.
Was I?
Yes, you were. Before we went off and talking about how tangents are awesome and went
Yeah.
off on a tangent, you were like, okay, I want to keep it focused.
Yeah, I
And
want to keep it focused
okay.
for you because it's your show.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, thank you.
So I meant.
Okay. So I want to go back into the whole picture of this and kind of tie everything back together, right? So when you look at effort and communication and how those things are paramount, one, let's look at where they rank on the spectrum. And I'm just throwing this out there right now. So when you look at the success of a company starting off and communication and the effort that goes into it, where do you think that ranks and why? And give me your thoughts on that.
Obviously, both extremely important. I think simply because if you boil the company down to one person, that rate that puts effort higher. Now there definitely comes a point where you can't do everything. You can't talk to the customer, make the thing, finish it, ship it, et cetera, et cetera. So the effort has to be there first, I think. But as soon as there's two people, if the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, it's not going to last very long.
Hence communication among your own business, right? Have you seen or heard of or read the book Good to Great?
Yeah.
So the one thing that I took away from that book when I read it was it talks about for those of you that haven't read that, it's about companies, and this is written about what, 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20.
Yeah.
It talks about how companies that got success went from good companies to being extremely great and extremely profitable. At the time, it talked about Walgreens, and the two that stuck out to me were Walgreens and McDonald's.
Yep.
And so there's even a movie on McDonald's, right? And talking about that and talking about.
I never saw that.
So yeah,
Did you?
so I watched about 2/3 of it when I was at my house, and then the kids took me away from it. But it was really interesting. But the whole they didn't want to expand. They wanted to be one store because they wanted to manage what they had going on because they knew that if they got too big, it'd be hard. It'd be hard to maintain consistency, right? And now look where they're at. They're everywhere.
Is it Good to Great that asks what kind of company McDonald's is?
In what regard? So elaborate.
So I don't know how to articulate this without spoiling it or just giving it away, but like I heard some entrepreneur or somebody ask, like, what business is McDonald's in? Everyone says burgers or whatever. And they're like, no, real estate. It's like they own some of the most valuable property in the entire world, all over the world.
All over, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not like, I get it. I understand what they're saying because they've got, there's a Times Square one and there's one in Athens, Greece, and so like I get it, but I don't get it because are you gonna sell that spot and make a profit, or are you just gonna keep it there because you just keep selling your yoga mat burgers and they're delicious and people won't stop buying them? Like,
I always, when I looking at this is a tangent, but it's related, so we'll keep going. When I look at businesses, I look at how they sell the idea, right? So maybe they're not selling food, they're selling an idea. And I think McDonald's, when they first opened, and this is just my perspective, right, is they sold the ideal of at the time what the American family should do, right? And that's hang out in the parking lot and eat food together and enjoy it and have fun. And the Golden Arches lit up everything, so it was like the outdoor kind of theater type feel. And they sold that ideal that it's just the American way to go eat at McDonald's. And I think that, coupled with the fact, and one of the things they talk about in Good to Great, is that they were able to maintain at the time, I don't know if it's like that now, consistency across all of their actual,
Yep.
I guess, businesses and all of their units, to where if you went to a McDonald's in China, which there are plenty of them in China, and you went to one in Podunk, middle of Kansas, nowhere in Rose Hill, where's that at? You'd get the same.
we get it.
You get the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's selling an ideal. So maybe that plays into. Tell me your thoughts on this. So selling in an idea. So I'm sure you have heard of. Have you watched any YouTube videos with Simon Sinek where he talks
Yeah.
about Simon Sinek is
Yeah, he's fantastic.
dude, that guy is a genius. So anyway, Simon Sinek, if you ever see this, I would love to meet you in person. You're a rock star. So Simon Sinek, yeah. So he talks about successful companies like Apple, right? Have you seen the video where he talks about working your way into out versus most people start with so the what the it's okay I'm literally going off of memory here. It starts so the outside ring is what, the middle ring is how, and the very center ring is why. So start with the why, right? So you remember that
Yeah.
topic? Yeah. I thought that was intriguing because it's like, holy crap, most people start with the what versus starting with the why, right? Or they lead with the why. So, how does that impact effort and communication? So, if you do a really good job selling that vision, which is half the battle, right? How much does that impact what you have to do with communication and etc.?
So you set me up for a fantastic segue here. Have you read the book The Goal?
I have not, which excites
Do
me.
you, do you know what it is?
No.
Okay, so it's called The Goal by, I think it's Eli Goldratt is the man's name. This book was written in like 82 or something. Like it was written in the 80s. Your experience from High Pro will be almost parallel to the book. It's for specifically like manufacturing,
Okay,
essentially. It's fantastic. But one of the core takeaways from the book is the communication aspect, like you talked about, and it's the guy in the office coming down to the floor and talking to the guys on the floor about the current state of affairs, or what's actually going on, or why are all those parts stuck in front of that machine? Why aren't they flowing through?
Yeah.
Things like that. And one thing that our company has done is we start these things they're called katas. Have you heard of these?
Mm-mm.
I can't remember if this was taken from Toyota or what book that we ended up taking it from, but the guy that I communicate most with is like the leader of the floor, right? So he's the guy that's the boss of the people that operate the machines, the CNCs that we run.
Yeah.
And so he's got a goal. So we have what's called, we call it Vorn data. It's just uptime for the machine, right? Yeah. So we get 10 hours in a production day, let's say, and, you know, it's for 8, we want to run for 9 hours, you know, so 90% uptime. I'm just giving broad numbers here.
Sure.
And so his goal coming into this kata, first one, was, okay, you know, it's like we're at, like, let's say a 40% uptime. And there's a lot of variables that go into that number, but we're just going to pick a big one and get up there. So we want to go from 40 to 70, which is huge. And so we set the goal, we meet a week later, and, you know, you uptick like 42 or whatever. And jumping to the end of the story here, he brought in all the guys. He brought in all the guys that work the machines and stuff. And the reason why I'm, you know, videotaping setups and having help and asking you these questions are because of this project. So it gives them the scope on the whole project. They understand why he's pushing them, why we're trying all these new things and you know, shaking the tree loose. And then we had like a 20% jump after he showed the why. And it's not, he's a great guy to work for. He's not one to articulate things poorly. He's not one just to throw commands. Like, people, he hasn't been my boss, but I work very well with him, and I see how he interacts with others, and I think people like working for him in general. So it's not that they were dismissive of him or going against what he was saying, but so the reason I'm saying that is because it just shows how powerful understanding that why is, and how it can really kind of turn on, you know, the effort, going back to that, for everyone else.
Yeah, and it gives, I love that, because it gives, if you had two examples, so if I went, Sam, you're going to come over to my house and you're going to make me a sandwich, and it's going to be peanut butter and jelly, and you have to do it within 30 minutes, right? So I'm just going to give you an example. And you're like, who the hell are you? And no, you're going to make me a sandwich, right? And then we go option B, right? And we go, Sam, I broke both my legs, and my wife is on a business trip in Kansas City, and I have a huge craving for peanut butter and jelly right now, and I'm at the point to where I try to get to the kitchen and I couldn't get to the kitchen and I haven't eaten in about 2 days, and if I don't get food in the next half an hour, I'm gonna kill someone. And then you go, oh yeah, wow, that's I should probably make that sandwich for you, right?
If I ever do write a book, it will be called Context is King, and all it's going to do is talk about stories like that, because those are two radically different requests. And like this is what sucks about like just not anyone in particular, all of the news is that every it's the headline, it's clickbait, it's all that crap. There is no context. People don't want it, unfortunately.
No,
this is going back to the social dilemma again, and when you watch it, you'll see it.
I promise I'll watch it this weekend. I promise.
It's great, but yeah, no, context is king. Like, it should be obvious. I think it is obvious to most people, but once again, that goes back to thinking about what you don't know. So, going along with your little story, wow, Brian has never asked me to make him a sandwich before. I wonder if there's something going on here. I wonder if he's possibly broken his legs and his wife is on a business trip.
And if you didn't ask the question, how much of a dick would you look like? You'd be like, Brian, hell no, I'm not making you a sandwich.
Yeah, and then you just end up dead on the kitchen floor without a sandwich.
How bad would you feel at that point? Yeah, I mean, let's be real. But
yeah,
it goes back to the why, right? And so not only is the why important for the consumer, it's important for your team, because if I bark out orders, and this was something we talked about in the leadership team and a lot of my jobs a ton, we're like, hey, we can't just tell people we need to hit a budget, right? Because like at all my fitness jobs, we had a budget to hit. It's like, we need to sell X amount of dollars or sell this X amount of memberships by the end of the month to hit our quota, right? And me as a manager, I don't make any money if we don't hit quota. And so, without looking at the context of it, if I don't give them the why and give them the principles on how that helps them, et cetera, they're going, hey, the only reason Brian is pushing this is because he wants to make his bonus at the end of the month. And I don't give a crap about that. And nor should they, right? Like, I don't want them to care about my bonus. Hopefully, if I'm a good leader, they do care, but let's be real, right? So, yeah. But if you have the context of it and you're going, hey, this impacts you to this, and so you got to get to know your people too, right? So communication, and not only for the consumer side but on the employee side, is we talked about doing one-on-ones, right? So how many times has your boss and or your boss's boss had a one-on-one, not for okay, you got something, not just for the fact of following up with your progress, but to genuinely sit down with you and go, Sam, how you doing? And go, what do you like to do in your free time? And
yes,
like,
okay.
So go.
You just took it right, and I don't care who you are. If you work with other human beings in any capacity whatsoever, for the love of God, please just ask them, what do you do when you're not here? Like, I'm blown away by, like, I've gone to certain people and said, yeah, I just got talking to such and such, and the person I'm speaking to has worked with them for 10 years, and I will tell them about something that they're doing because they never bothered to ask. Yeah. And I get it, we're all busy, and it's a lot easier for me to do this because 80% of the day I'm probably not thinking about work, which it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's just the way my mind works. I've always got 17 things I'm thinking about, for sure. And most of the time it sucks, but for this, like, I know what all of my coworkers do when they're not at work. Yeah. I know the guys that are hunters. I know the people that love to cook. I know the people that work out. Like, I just ask. Like, and it opens up. It helps work too, especially because you're like, John loves to, he knows about, something. He might be able to help with this problem because I know he does that in his free time anyway. Yeah. Or maybe I've got a problem, with something outside of work or whatever, but I know that one of my coworkers, does that every day or whatever. So, he might know a guy that can do cupboards for me or whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter. But it helps every single aspect, because if you show even a modicum of interest into other people, they're going to be like, if you ever need them to do anything for work or outside of their 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, yeah, absolutely, I'll help you out.
They're going to run through walls for you. And
if they're like you, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're as big as you.
Well, I mean, they're going to do what they can to run through that wall. I mean, I can guarantee that.
Absolutely.
I was watching whatever movie. I don't know if Alyssa's still awake, but we were watching the movie with the 4 guys that want to do their bucket list, and they like ride their motorcycles across the country. The older guys.
Wild Hogs.
Yeah, Wild Hogs. And they they're trying to fight this biker gang of 55 guys, and there's 4 of them who are all old and got dad bod galore. They're like, I don't care, I'm going to run through walls, let's do this. And the guy's like, what are you doing? So that's the kind of impact you want to have. And it's just crazy how that impacts things. So like, and people will do anything. So it's like, if you ask them, like, that's why, and I wasn't always the best at that, right? I mean, we all are learning and growing, and it's something that I continually, oh, hey, she is awake, and it is Wild Hogs. I love you, babe. So it was when I realized that was a huge epiphany for me, going, hey, I need to be more involved in their personal lives, especially when the going gets tough and you got people breathing down your neck going, you need to hit budget, you need to do this, you need to do this. And a lot of us want to get drawn away from the core fundamentals of like, hey guys, we need to do this, we need to get going, let's go, 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 versus just sitting down and taking a breather for a second, because we're counterproductive if we don't treat them as humans versus treating them as robots. So it's just funny that even came up. So I'm glad that came up, because that's a huge component of that is the why. It directly correlates with effort, and it directly in the communication with the why. So having proper communication, having the proper why creates that effort, and it's funny how those all tie together. And then when you have happy employees and you have that output, the consumer naturally is, I would assume, going to be a lot happier, because they're going to do a lot better job at making sure those individuals are happy, which brings me back to my point earlier of, if individuals are happy doing what they're doing, they tend to pay it forward, so to speak, to everybody else they encounter, right? Also a very good movie. Have you seen it?
Pay It Forward?
Yes.
No.
Put it on your list right now. Write it down somewhere. I don't even care.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Like, I'm not even joking. You need to put that in your phone right now.
Okay.
So, Pay It Forward is the principle of, I'm going to do a good deed for somebody else today, and I want them to do it for the next person in line, right? So, that whole scenario of, hey, if they have the core why and they're nicer people to other people, they're going to, in turn, do that for other individuals as well, because they go, wow, this person just impressed me. They did something for me. I want to reciprocate that. That also happens the other direction, is if somebody's a piece of crap to me, which is happening quite a lot lately, especially with the social media warriors that are going on here, hence why I took Facebook off of my phone, on both sides, I might tell you. I don't want to see that crap, and that it can go a downward spiral both ways. If you surround yourself with negative people, you have a negative connotation in your head, right? If you surround yourself with positive people that have nice beards and look good, you tend to be a better person yourself, right? With nice blue headphones.
Yeah, well, so the word that you said there a couple of times was people, and I think we forget that it's people on both sides. It's people that work in the government. It's people that we're all just people. Mm-hmm. And I was really disappointed because I don't share shit on Facebook. I try to post as little as possible, because
true story, by the way, he does as little as possible.
Yeah. Because intent doesn't matter, and I just want to make people laugh in general. So when I do share stuff, it's generally stupid. But I don't remember exactly what was going on. I think it was probably right after the George Floyd incident. And I mean, you share anything, you're basically you're picking sides, and shit is on from there. Mm-hmm. But I shared a video from Jocko, and he said, you got to remember, people are scared. There's people, policemen are people, people protesting in the streets are people. Like, there's a lot going on, and we see this much of it, because they go to something that's on fire and then they zoom in on that or whatever. I can't speak to these things. I generally work all the time. I go to bed early. I lead a very boring life, but
no judgment.
But I wanted to get that sentiment across because me and you both, like, we have been extremely blessed in our life. We got a lot of friends on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of blue friends, a lot of red friends, whatever you want to say, and we love them both equally, and they're all awesome. And I think that's why it sucks for us, because we know that we've literally sat at dinner tables with all of these people, and they've all shown love to us personally and taken care of us, whether we've needed a friend to talk to, somebody to lift with, or somebody to eat with, whatever. And then you see all this vitriol and bullshit on Facebook, and it just sucks because we know just people, and they're scared, they're angry, and they want to do better. And so anyway, what this rant is getting at is the video that I shared of Jocko. That was his sentiment. He's like, they're people, they're scared. Remember that. And that's the only point I wanted to get across. I'm pretty sure you're the only person that liked that video too.
I probably was. I remember that conversation.
Yeah, and that was like super disheartening for me, because I was like, I want people to remember that we're all just people. We're all, at the end of the day, we all go home. Like, yeah. So.
No, but that's a very valid point, is that it's funny because that's part of the conversation topic, right? Is that when we communicate with other people, whether it's in business or it's something like that with, day-to-day life, we have to communicate with the understanding that everyone, kind of to my point earlier, doesn't wake up going, I'm going to hate people today. I'm going to cast doubt on others today. I'm going to, it's not something inherently that you get. It's something that you learn to do because of the circumstances that arise and things that are going on. So that's when the hatred seeps in. That's when the fear seeps in. That's when all these things happen. And I think if you have open communication, so since we're on that topic with talking about communication in that level, when you have that, when you're willing to listen, to going back to your point earlier, when you're willing to listen and take that perspective in, it is amazing the types of positive conversations you can have with other individuals, even on the opposite side of the fence. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen with 99% of America right now. And it's sad to see that. But I digress. Going back to wrapping things up, because I know this is way past your bedtime. And if you
Dude, I'm just getting started. I'm feeling good now, man.
If you're feeling good and you find a story, let's go with it. Because I'm just going live now, and people can drop off and come on whenever they want. But I wanted to make this video because I think it's huge that, one, everybody gives, and you can't always do this, right? Because you're going to get burnt out. But give 110%, right? Because you never know how you're going to negatively impact somebody if you don't give that, because I'm gonna think of a really good example right now I'm going to give an example with my side, because fitness is something I love, right? So in fitness, and I would say this on my one-on-ones, I said, okay, so when you wake up and you come into work as a salesperson, the sales team member is the very first person outside the front desk that this individual walking into the fitness center is going to meet, right? You are that first perceptive individual that has an impact on this person's journey, right? And you could do one of two things. You're having a bad day. Maybe you saw too many things on social media that you shouldn't have read and it got you all fired up. Maybe, your tire blew out on the way to work, and maybe you got broken up with, or, whatever the case may be. And I told them, when you step foot in that door and all these things are happening in your life, that's not a bad thing. Come to me. Come vent to me. Come take it out on me and allow me to take that in. Because the second that somebody steps in front of you and is there to make a lifestyle change, you have to have that A-game face, right? Like, treat that individual as exactly what we've been talking about, an individual, as a person, as somebody with needs, as somebody with fears, as somebody with hopes. And it's all about the effort with that. And I'm going to get fired up on this, right? Because this is a huge topic for me. Is that one, I have OCD about everything, and I feel like if you're doing less than 100%, then get the fuck out. And yes, I just used the F bomb. I'm sorry, Mom. And she's probably not watching. She's passed out.
Hi, Marsha.
Hi, Marsha, if you're watching. I told you not to watch yesterday. Hopefully you watched right now. But if you're not going to give your 110%, what are you doing? And if you hate what you're doing right now, and this is kind of my point to this, if you're at a point in your life where the things that you got going on, you can't give 110% for whatever reason because you're not motivated, which that's normal to not be motivated a lot of the time, right? Because 90% of us aren't doing stuff we enjoy. Then don't stay there. Yeah, you got to pay the bills. Understandable. But make plan B, make plan C, because you're not doing anybody else any favors, and the whole pay it forward concept also works the other way, right? And I look at it that way, going, hey, if you give somebody else a shit poor experience, that's going to impact their day. And if you impact their day negatively, they may rub off on some other individuals that may be impacted negatively, and that becomes a chain reaction either direction that can impact a lot of things, right? So I wanted to leave that note on effort, is that don't do it for the end result for money. If you're not going to do it for that, at least do it as a solid human being, knowing that you owe that to other individuals.
I mean, and we don't have to wrap this up, but if
keep going, if you have something.
Yeah, we'll keep going then. But if there's anything like, we talk about ideas a lot, and that's kind of what this is about, our idea of good communication and sharing our experiences thus far. I would never say that I am a successful person in general, but the one thing that I have been successful at every place I've ever worked, and generally any place that I go, is I'll call it making friends, but it's that inquiring into their life. What do you do when you're not here? Like, just if anyone can take anything that I've said tonight, it's that. Just ask a coworker what they do when they're not at work. Just show a little bit of interest, and that's been my biggest thing. I've got friends at every single job I've ever had, and I've had a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the only constant not the only, but the main constant at all of them. And doesn't it make you feel good when people ask you like what you're into? And granted, there's some people out there that, I'm not trying to be mean, but they're not very interesting, and some people don't have an answer. I've run into that before too, so that's a little bit hard. It's true. Not everybody likes things, I guess, or maybe they just want to share with me. But 99% of people, maybe it's Frisbee golf, maybe it's World of Warcraft, maybe it's working out, maybe it's CrossFit, maybe it's running, maybe it's books, whatever. Most people have something that they want to share with you that they can talk about.
Oh yeah, and that may open up into something larger. Asking,
Yes.
what they do may open up into a larger issue they may have that you can help. At least just be a listening ear, and it makes me feel good. Like if somebody says that to me, I'm just like, holy crap! I can't. Like I'm so used to subpar experiences that when I have something like that where somebody goes above and beyond, I'm like, whoa. I like to take long walks on the beach and have steak dinners, thank you for asking. That's phenomenal. But and I like to read, write, and anyway, I digress again. But no, I think that's awesome. And then on the communication side,
So hold up, sorry.
Okay, go back. Go.
So I'm just gonna ask the question.
Okay.
I'm not gonna suppose the answer. Is the most important part of communication listening?
Oh, hold on a second. So this is interesting because I have an immediate answer, and then
Yes.
in my head I'm going, why even ask the question?
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm not going to think about this because I'm not going to overthink it. We're just going to go.
Good.
All right?
Just go. Shoot from the hip.
Is listening the most important part of communication? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
I would say yes. And now I'm anxious to hear your feedback afterwards, right? But yes, because when you allow somebody else to talk, endorphins are released, and it allows them to feel better. When you listen, you gain knowledge, you gain insight, which, as we talked about earlier, is creating the ability for you to see things a way that you may not have been able to see them prior to, right? So it broadens your horizons. Nobody has. I mean, listening to this video tonight, right? Hopefully, I have at least 5 viewers tonight. You know, if I hit 5, I'm pretty stoked right now. But that allowing, if people are listening to this, hopefully they take something away from it. But yes, listening is, to me, 90% of it, because you can reply when you speak with the right intentions, with the right context, with the right direction of carrying the conversation where it should be going anyway.
Yes, and so I have to give a quick little shout out here in remembrance of a friend of mine and a coworker, and he was my boss for a time, Brett Ringstead. He passed away a few months ago, suddenly, 35 years old. It was a huge blow. It was a huge bummer. He was an Iowa dude as well. So we bonded it with that immediately. Once again, like, he came out to do time studies when I was an op on the floor, and we started that conversation. Found out we're both from Iowa, and it just rolled from there. And eventually, I worked under him. And the reason why this is relevant is because after I worked for him, I got promoted to a different position. I would go back to him when I had problems, and I was worried. There was 100 things going on. I'm just chatting his ear off. He would literally just stand there and listen and let me, like, burn out with my problems and fears. And I would talk through my own problems, answer them myself. I'm like, dude, you're my Yoda. Thank you. He was an awesome friend, an awesome boss, and just being that listener, being that ear. I mean, you're going to have people come to you. They're going to solve their own problems, and you literally just stand there. It's fantastic.
Literally just stand there.
But most of them don't do that, but some of them.
Oh, they don't? Okay. But no.
It looks like you have a tennis ball rolling up and down.
Let's do that in slow motion when we edit the video, right?
Ah, shit, I'm going to get sued now, aren't I? Damn it.
But, dude, that's cool. It's funny how that works. And I think that's God's way of rewarding us, right? Because, like, nobody listens. Like, nobody listens with the intent of understanding. They listen with the intent of replying.
Yes.
And I took that from 85 different sources. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally get it. Hold up, I'm having some technical difficulties here.
Ooh.
I might freaking out a little bit.
Yes, I can still see you, and yes, I can hear you.
What is going on?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I apologize. I can't see anything.
Uh-oh, you went black.
Well, I think my Discord bit.
I'll let you.
Yeah, I apologize. Discord seems to taking a dump. So yeah, I don't know how this affects you and the video. We want to keep rolling. We're gonna have to end the call and start it again.
It'll change the embedding. So can you're listening to me? You just can't see anything, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you look beautiful, by the way. You're very inquisitive right now with your look on your face. I love it. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on.
So we'll wrap up. But the take, I think we hit the nail on the head on both of these points, is that both you could argue a lot of things on what's most important when it comes to success in life and in business, but I think when you look at the whole picture as a whole, communication, and my wife would argue this too, is that communication is extremely important in every aspect of your life, and giving effort is something that's one of those X factors, right? Like, it's something that can take you to places that you never thought you could go, and it can also put you in some deep holes that you never wanted to dig into if you don't do it the right way. So I'm going to let you give some closing notes on what you liked about this talk and kind of what your biggest takeaways were after having conversations on everything.
Honestly, the only thing that I want people to remember from what I've said is ask somebody about them. Someone to try to work. If anyone watches this video and if anyone does that, I will consider that a huge.
Huge win. Guys, if you ask something about them and ask how they're doing, a lot of people are going through some hard times right now. And the
Yeah.
simple question of, hey, how are you? What's going on in your life? What are you up to? Is something that can make or break that person moving forward. And I don't like to talk about a really dark topic with that, right? But if you look at suicides in the last, since quarantine started, pretty high. And I don't think that was because of quarantine. I think that just sped up the process for something that was people didn't have that, a human interaction. They didn't have that purpose. And kind of going back full circle with this is that purpose is huge. And if you don't have a purpose right now, find it and find it quick because tomorrow's not guaranteed. And live every day like it's your last. And I took that from about 150 million different sources, by the way. Live each day like it's your last. Cliche, but extremely true. Give someone a positive experience tomorrow. And when you're doing a professional, and when you're in a professional setting or in a business, I want you to take away that somebody's always watching and to always give 110%, put the best foot forward, and be very with communication. This is how I'm trying to pick my words properly, right? Because I don't want things to get misconstrued. With communication, listen. That's the biggest part. Listen to what people have to say, and if you listen, what you have to say will be the right thing, and the context of the situation will be
Which may be nothing at all.
yeah, it may be nothing, but if that's the right thing, that's the right thing. So communication, be upfront, be you, and find a way to help somebody with a positive change in their life, and just be empathetic and be human because we're all human. And I want to say thank you to Sam for putting up with the 3 hours of technical difficulties the last 24 hours and then the 15 minutes of me cussing my brains out before the live video started tonight. I am going to pee my pants if I don't go to the bathroom in the next 5 minutes.
All right, well, hey, thanks for having me, bro. We'll do it again.
All right, guys. You guys have a good night. Tell us below what your thoughts were. Give us your stories about what you notice in your life with communication and effort and how that's impacted you. And I don't even know how many comments we have right now. I'm going to guess 3. And
So I looked, we have 7, and it was Peter that saw me deadlift, and it was black and pink Zumba pants. So
black
you,
and pink. Nice. My visual going to bed tonight is going to be phenomenal. Great.
Beautiful.
I'm having nightmares already. So thanks again, guys. Put your comments on what you thought. What would you like to see changed? Would you like to see Sam again in future videos? If not, it's not going to hurt his feelings, maybe a little bit.
And I'm going to come back anyway.
Just shoot me a DM on that one, and if it's positive, tell him, give him a shout out. Thanks, Sam. You guys all have a great night.
Later.
Bye. I just got your text. I just wanted to see how you felt about it.
Yeah, no, dude, I love that. I mean, like I've always wanted to, do stuff like this. And like I said in the thing, I will someday when I've got the setup. But yeah, no, that's fun for me. Honestly, it means it's all good.
No, I had a good time with that. I thought it was cool. And then I liked not having a script, just having like an overall idea of what we wanted to talk about, because a lot of the stuff we talked about, I didn't even expect or anticipate talking about. So it was kind of cool how that all transpired. I think the biggest thing will be, because I want to be able to see comments as we go. So if we started on time or a little bit earlier in the night, I think we'll have a lot more people. And there may be people that comment on this as we go down the road, but it'll be a little bit better in that respect. Oh crap! I gotta stop my recording and streaming on my